Satisfy your need for happiness through your own curiosity with the Ranveer Show. When we say 8% growth this quarter, can you boil it down in a very simple way in terms of it's basically...
Incomes of the whole system is growing.
But the income, I asked you this the last time also. Does it effectively mean we're exporting a lot of...
No. So here, this is the important part. While we are going through this growth phase, it is the case that unlike China, which had the benefit of very high GDP growth when it was going through the high GDP growth phase, it was exporting a lot because the world was a better place. We are not in such a good place today because the world is actually going through a lot of
wars.
Wars.
War-like
Also,
situation.
many of our markets are declining. Like Germany, Japan, UK are in recession and so on. So it's much more difficult to use exports to grow. So we are having to generate it almost entirely internally through investment and so on. Now, obviously, it will be much more helpful if we were able to do it with the help of... Now, that may turn up in the future, in which case we'll grow even faster. But let's see, right now we are managing it entirely on our own. And that is not a trivial thing.
A bit of a recap. Again, I'm trying to go into first principles thinking here. If you personify India, okay, it's a person whose income is increasing at 8%. Fair to say? Please correct me if you disagree. Where is that extra money coming from into our economy if it's not coming through exports?
It is coming from basically from the fact that there's been an uptick in investments. Initially, government investment, a lot of the infrastructure. You live in Mumbai, you can see huge infrastructure being built around you. Coastal road, the metro system, etc. That creates jobs and creates demand for steel, cement, and so on. So that is one part of it. Now there is increasingly also, you're seeing private investment. So you are seeing all these new factories coming up that's also happening around you, your Pune and so on. So all of that is happening. Now there is also FDI coming in. There are all these fab plants being built. Micron is setting up something up the coast and so on. So that is what is generating a lot of this momentum. Houses are being built. I don't know if you suffer this, but I have a Delhi number, so I suffer Noida housing, advertising, direct calls coming through to me, telling me so and so. In fact, just before I entered your building, I got a call trying to market some Noida housing. So, I mean, all of this is also going on. The financial markets are doing well. That's another source of activity. So there's a lot of activity going on.
Effectively, see, I'm an engineer and I understand things based on, a flow of energy, for lack of a better way of explaining things. So even money, if you look at it as energy, I would only assume that the total amount of money in our system is increasing in my head through foreign direct investment, but also through like...
internal generation. But the internal generation is always the more important part.
Internal generation is through the government and through extremely rich Indians, effectively. Private sector and public sector.
Yeah, but there's a lot of it. The middle class is also borrowing and buying cars, borrowing and building a house. The very poor are using Prime Minister's Awas Yojana, where they take some government money, but a lot of it they spend themselves. So it is not the case that you are functioning like that. So that it's a national effort. It's not like rich Indians are only spending. So it's not the Ambani wedding that is solely responsible for economic growth.
No,
so if you take irrespective of how much money he spent on a national scale, it's peanuts.
Okay, maybe let me reframe the question. Okay, this is for the sake of better understanding, and I would love for you also to use a metaphor.
Yeah.
So I'll try pitching a metaphor to you and explain it to me that way.
Yeah.
Now imagine for a second that India is an ancient city.
Yeah.
Effectively, that city is getting richer.
Yes.
But a city gets richer through like an injection of money.
Not necessarily.
That's what I'm
So
asking.
you may, there are ancient cities now, you may decide to expand the city, or there may be some parts of the city that are crumbling. You widen the road, you build newer parts of it. So all of that creates space for economic activity. So for example, let's take Varanasi as a live example of this.
Go on.
And, we had all those narrow lanes. in and around Kashi Vishwanath temple. You opened it up, cleaned it up. It's still, the old temple is still there, but you opened up the lanes, you laid out some new structures, etc. And now a lot more people can come to the same place. Now that has created economic activity in its own right. Now, because that is happening, now more people can come. Therefore, not only are people coming here, there are also more people can come to Varanasi in general. That's creating jobs for transportation, restaurants, hotels, then also for the flights. And because all of this is happening and people have more money, even those who are living in Varanasi now are richer, so they are buying more cars or improving their houses and so on. So all of this is feeding through. So it doesn't need an injection. For example, the average human being on this planet is better off than they were 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that the aliens from somewhere came and invested in this world. It happened through internal human effort. After all, the world's economy is a closed system. So a lot of it is anyway self-generated. Foreign investment helps to trigger the system to grow, but that doesn't mean that is the only source, and you need that. You need some money is good, some international linkages, technology, all of these are good things. And it's good to learn from the rest of the world, but it is not the case that it is the only driving force. Good part of it is internally generated. After all these construction that we are seeing of metros, etc., this, we are doing ultimately. Yes, there is some foreign, you may have a foreign collaborator, partner, etc., but that doesn't mean that.
I'm sorry I'm slowing you down in your thought process here, but it's just, again, for the sake of first principles thinking.
Yes.
So effectively, you spoke about how FDI is not the only source of an increase in size of the economy.
Yeah.
But that increase in size of the economy is also happening because of certain conditions that are built for the population to live and work, etc. So the whole game of economics is how do you build those conditions in order for that size of the economy to grow? That's all?
Yeah.
Would you like to add anything else? Because in my head, for anything to grow, where is that source material coming from? You said that the world is a closed system.
Yes. So source material coming from human effort.
Human effort.
That is the thing. We are redistributing stuff on this planet. I mean, this building is built of cement. It came from some limestone somewhere. We crunched it up into cement, dragged it here, put bricks, which we had also basically took sand or mud or whatever it is, turned it into bricks. And then we put it there, put this former limestone and this former clay into a thing, and we have constructed this building. So as a result of redistributing all of this, we have generated some value.
Is it trivial to use this energy transforms from one form into another in the domain of economics?
No, it isn't. This is the point. This is human effort, right? After all, this conversation we are having is coming out of material that's inside my head and inside your head. But this interaction has presumably generated some value because some people are watching this.
Gotcha.
Right. So that value didn't exist. Right. That conversation didn't exist before we had this. So human effort has created out of thin air value.
Gotcha.
Right. So GDP growth is most of that is not digging up mining. Otherwise, it would only be mining. Even agriculture is not that something is naturally growing from the ground and you are harvesting it. Right? Some farmer put some seed into the ground, watered it, therefore it generated rice. It is not that he just went and harvested it in thin air.
So the art of economics is your best attempt at creating those conditions in order to
allow this human effort to happen. And this is precisely what economics is about. The earth has limited resources. How do you distribute it in a way that, one, it gets used in a sensible way and also encourages human effort and human striving to be able to generate this value? And therefore, how do you set up the system to do this? Those from a market orientation will argue that the best way to set this up is by creating incentives for people to take risks and try and capture as much of value of that in whether through personal wealth or whatever other thing, whatever personally as individuals drive them.
Okay.
Whereas the socialist view would be that no, that this leads to bad outcomes, and so you need a state that forces people to do things as top down as whatever the social planner thinks is the correct thing to do. That is basically the difference. I mean, I'm taking two extreme examples, but basically that is the difference between a socialist view where the sarkar tells everybody what they should do, and the other is where the sarkar's job is to create the conditions for people to do their own thing.
Gotcha. I've learned a couple of things from you over the course of our few conversations. The first is that there is a bit of an art of economics angle in terms of every economist will look at economic policy in his or her own way.
Yes.
And you never know until it's actually turned into actual policy and laws and applied. And then you see the population interacting with your theoretical conjecture.
Yes.
Then it may work, it may not work. Every economist is also bringing his or her own personality and emotions into their technical work. That is what the art form is.
Yes.
Fair to say? Okay. Is it frustrating that I'm doing this recap with you, asking you to?
No, I mean, that's fine. I mean, it's good that that people may want to recap it in this fashion. Yes.
If you enjoyed today's clip, make sure you check out these curated playlists that we've made especially for you related to the subject that was spoken about in this clip.